Oh my gosh, can we just talk about the 80s for a minute? It feels like sunshine in a bottle. Close your eyes and just imagine it. The air was buzzing with this incredible electric energy. Life was painted in the boldest, brightest colors you could ever dream of. Neons, pastels, all of it. It was a time of pure, unadulterated fun. Everything felt big and exciting and full of possibilities. You could feel a change in the air, a sense of optimism that was just so infectious. It was a time to be loud, to be bold, and to just be yourself. What a vibe. I remember it so vividly. It was a world of cassette tapes, boomboxes on your shoulder. You'd spend hours making the perfect mixtape for a friend, hitting record at just the right moment. The sounds were everywhere. The synthesized beats of a new pop song, the chimes of an arcade game, the dial-up screech of a modem connecting for the first time. It was a symphony of newness. Life wasn't filtered through a tiny screen in your hand. It was lived out loud, right there in the moment. We weren't afraid to be a little silly, a little over the top. It was all about embracing the joy. Think about the feeling of walking into a video store on a Friday night. The smell of popcorn, the endless aisles of VHS tapes just waiting to be discovered. It was a real adventure. You'd spend forever picking out the perfect movie, maybe a blockbuster you missed in theaters or a silly comedy. It was a shared experience, something you did with family or friends. We connected in such a different way back then. We talked on landline phones with super long curly cords, stretching them as far as they could go for a little privacy. It was a simpler, more connected time in its own special way. Let's talk about the music, because wow, the 80s gave us legends, true musical royalty. Michael Jackson wasn't just the king of pop. He was a global phenomenon. His moonwalk, his videos, his music, it was all pure magic that brought the entire world together. Then you had the incredible Madonna, a true trailblazer who taught us all to express ourselves and never apologize for it. And Prince. Oh, Prince was a genius, a force of nature whose talent was just off the charts. His music was a blend of everything: funk, rock, pop, and it was all so uniquely him. These artists didn't just make songs, they created entire worlds. And how did we experience all this amazing music? MTV. Before MTV, music was something you mostly just heard. But then, suddenly, we could see it. Music videos became these mini-movies, these incredible pieces of art. Artists could tell stories and create visual masterpieces that made their songs even more iconic. I remember being glued to the TV, waiting for my favorite videos to come on. It was a shared cultural event. The VJs were like our cool older siblings, guiding us through this amazing new world of sound and vision. It was a revolution, truly. The movies were just as epic. We had these huge blockbusters that you just had to see on the big screen. Think about films like E.T. the Extraterrestrial. It captured our hearts and made us all believe in a little bit of magic. And the adventure. Indiana Jones made us all want to be daring explorers. John Hughes was like the poet of teenage life, giving us classics like The Breakfast Club and Ferris Bueller's Day Off. These movies understood us. They showed us that it was okay to feel awkward and confused, and that our feelings mattered. They were more than movies. They were companions. And at home, our TVs were filled with shows that felt like family. We gathered every week to watch sitcoms like The Cosby Show and Cheers, where everyone knew your name. These shows were funny and full of heart, but they also tackled real issues in a way that brought people together. We laughed with the Golden Girls and grew up with the kids from Family Ties. Television wasn't just background noise. It was a central part of our lives, a way we connected with each other and with the stories that defined our times. It was a warm, comforting glow in our living rooms. Okay, the technology of the 80s was just so cool, it was all about bringing the fun home. This was when personal computers started showing up in our houses. Suddenly, this futuristic machine wasn't just for scientists or big companies. It was for us. It was this gateway to a new world of games and creativity. And let's not forget the Nintendo Entertainment System, or NES. Oh my gosh, Mario Zelda became part of the family. It wasn't just a toy. It was a portal to entire kingdoms that we could explore right from our living room floor. It was a game changer, literally. And then there was the Sony Walkman. Can we just appreciate how amazing this was? For the first time ever, you could take your music with you anywhere you went. You could create your own personal soundtrack for your life. Walking to school, riding the bus, just hanging out in your room. It was all set to the music you loved. You'd pop in your favorite cassette, put on those classic foam headphones, and the world would just melt away. It was a feeling of freedom and independence, a little bubble of pure joy that belonged only to you. It was personal, it was portable, and it was perfect. And the style. Oh, the style was everything. It was loud, it was proud, and it was so much fun. We're talking big hair. The bigger, the better. You needed a can of Aquanet just to get out the door. And the colors. Neon pink, electric blue, lime green. We wore it all, sometimes at the same time. We had shoulder pads that made you feel powerful, acid-wash jeans, and leg warmers over everything. It wasn't about blending in, it was about standing out and having a blast with what you wore. It was fashion as pure, joyful expression. Design was just as bold. You saw it in everything from furniture to album covers. The Memphis design movement brought in these wild geometric shapes, squiggly lines, and a clash of bright, unapologetic colors. It was playful and totally unexpected. Think about the graphics on a Trapper Keeper, or the opening credits of a show like Saved by the Bell. That was the look. It was a visual language that screamed fun and energy. The 80s weren't afraid to be a little weird and a little wacky, and that's exactly why we loved it so much. It was a decade that dared to be different. Beyond the fun and the fashion, the 80s was a time of huge, monumental change in the world. The biggest, of course, was the winding down of the Cold War. For decades, there was this tension, this feeling of being on edge. But in the 80s, we started to see the ice thaw. Then, in 1989, the Berlin Wall came down. I remember watching it on TV, seeing people celebrating, chipping away at this symbol that had divided a city and the world for so long. It was a moment of pure, overwhelming hope. It felt like a new era of peace and unity was truly possible, and it was happening right before our eyes. Of course, the decade had its shadows too. It's so important to remember that it wasn't all bright colors and pop music. The AIDS crisis emerged. It cast a dark cloud of fear and misinformation. It was a time of terrible loss and heartbreak. It brought out the worst in people and the best in people. We also saw growing pains with the economy, where some people did really well while others were left behind. Acknowledging these struggles doesn't take away from the joy of the decade. It just gives us a more complete, more human picture of what it was really like. So why do we look back on the 80s with such a warm, sunny glow? I think it's because the decade's spirit was just so infectious. It was a time of bold creativity, of fearless self-expression, and of groundbreaking change. The music, the movies, the technology, they didn't just define the era, they laid the foundation for the world we live in today. The 80s taught us to dream big, to embrace new ideas, and to not be afraid to stand out. It was a time when culture felt like a giant, inclusive party, and everyone was invited to dance. Ultimately, the legacy of the 80s is its incredible, enduring influence and its sense of boundless fun. It was a decade that balanced massive global shifts with personal, everyday joys. It gave us icons who still inspire us and art that still moves us. It reminds us of a time when things felt a little simpler, but also on the verge of something amazing. That feeling, that mix of nostalgia, optimism, and pure, unadulterated joy, is the sunshine in a bottle we get to open whenever we press play on an 80s song or watch a favorite movie. And that is something truly special.